Good morning. Just to figure out if it works. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we should ask. Okay. Can you hear? Can these speakers hear us or no?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, everybody's here. Yeah. If you cannot hear us in the room, like you can put like these headphones. But I can speak loud and enough. I think like tell me if you don't hear me. Like and good morning, not morning, afternoon. But good afternoon, everyone. Like and a warm welcome like to our side event like here at the World Food Forum. I'm Francesco, like he's Vadim, like, and we are the Italian and the Russian delegate at the Youth 20. The Youth 20, as you may know, like is the official youth engagement group of the G20, and and basically like this group like was tasked this year by the Indonesian presidency to provide a youth perspective on the main issues on the G20 agenda. And it goes without saying that like, this year, one of the issue up for discussion is food. So we spent several months discussing about food. It was one of the focus of our group. And last July, we delivered a series of policy proposals to the G20 Indonesian presidency. Right? And when we had the opportunity to submit our proposal for a side event here at the World Food Forum, we thought it could be a good opportunity to present an hybrid event, or what I like to say, a doubly hybrid event. First, we didn't want this to be a closed door meeting, so a meeting where you can come around the table and people can connect from everywhere around the world. But also we didn't want this to be a one-way presentation, but a meeting where we could share the work that we've done with the Youth 20 over the past few months, and we can make it available, really like put it at the service of a much larger, more diverse, more representative group of people. And the ultimate goal of this gathering really like is to ensure that first of all like the complexity of the climate nutrition nexus, the peculiarity of local context, and also the individuality of the food systems experience are all taken into account when we are discussing food systems and when we are developing a shared vision like for food systems on behalf of all youth towards COP27, which is the objective of the main gathering here like of the youth day after tomorrow. 40 minutes left, 40 minutes to discuss what we have done as Y20, to understand how our work could be enriched, and also to really identify what this shared vision for all youth towards COP27 could be. We have a very rich panel, 9 speakers, 6 of them online, 3 of them here in person. We should get started, and we should get started with the policy recommendations for transforming the food systems, which were developed by the Youth 20 Food Systems Working Group. I'm introducing our 3 speakers, and then they will speak one after after the other. We have Tomás Listrani, who was the Y20 delegate from Argentina. We have Natalia Mamede, who was the Y20 delegate from Brazil, and Michaela Chan, who was the Y20 delegate from the UK. So, Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Francesco, and the organizing team. And can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we do.
First of all, I'm very honored to be here today. As you know, 3 months ago, the Y20 unanimously approved a communique with 120 policy recommendations, which emphasized food systems like never before. Here today, we seek now to continue building youth consensus to transform food systems at all scales. This is why, as we look ahead, new policy frameworks shall center sustainability as a key dimension of food security. Now, this first point may seem abstract, though our message is clear. Planetary well-being can no longer be dissociated from what we put on our plates. Adding sustainability, a fifth pillar, is all about efficacy and sincerity. Without it, we would keep denying around 2/3 of the real cost of food. Mounting scientific evidence shows that the impacts from climate change are ever more dramatic and related with more undernourishment. But at the same time, recent improvements in food security have been often achieved under linear, unsustainable approaches. Time is running out, and conventional and slanted solutions must cease. In this spirit, we stress the need to transition to circular food systems. Addressing that current systems leave 40% of food uneaten is a moral imperative for our generation. From food waste to livestock, circularity can deeply change all stages of the chain. We know how much there is to gain if we repurpose agricultural support in this direction. We know hundreds of millions of jobs can be created in the developing world through climate-smart agriculture. We know the immense ecological impact we can achieve if we support small-scale farms and fisheries under nature-positive solutions. How long will we live? What will our cities and countryside look like? Will our planet be inhabitable at all? In the future of food systems resides much more than putting an end to empty bowls. Thank you all. Back to you, to my colleagues.
Can I go next? Yes? Okay. So thank you, and thank for this huge opportunity of discussing food systems futures among ourselves, the future decision makers, and currently engaged in youth around the world. As Tommy highlighted, we thought to acknowledge important aspects of food systems, bring it to the center of the discussion on Y20 as one of the working groups. Continuing the proposals already presented, we also brought to the discussion the need to improve fair and just access to markets for local and young food producers. Small producers are responsible for 1/3 of the food production, which shows the importance of local empowerment, especially when we talk about infrastructure, collaboration between themselves, and creating better food environments. When we think about building capacities for local and young producers, it is important to underline the importance of it to the global south. Difficulties in accessing the market, poor digitalization, challenges of scaling up and collaborating are some of the points we can bring to this discussion. About healthy diets, the communique called attention to accessibility and affordability when it comes to food. These aspects also needs to be combined with availability and are keen to understand how we can promote health diets. We need to ensure that the guidelines for health diets take into consideration these strict conditions in order to be really applicable. The importance of having national dietary guidelines is also highlighted as a way to enhance the discussion of food systems inside the public sector as well as the investments needed to secure a more sustainable future. Another important topic that emerged in our discussions was livestock production. And beyond consumption, production needs to be tackled in a way to reduce environmental impact while understanding the challenges of overconsumption and that this overconsumption can bring, especially from the global north and in higher income groups, taking into consideration also different cultural aspects and access to these projects. These are some of the proposals that we came up while addressing food systems challenges on these days. Bringing them together was a collective effort with 20 different fields in this huge world, but I thought it was important also to mention that this means that we need to continue to build a youth wheel, collecting more wheels than this 20 we already had. So thank you, and I will pass to Michaela.
Thank you, Natalia, and thanks for everyone for the opportunity to be here. So continuing from what Tommy and Natalia have outlined, our final three proposals focus more on the technical aspects of food systems. So in line with another Y20 working group on our Sustainable and Livable Planet policy track, namely the Protecting Global Commons working group, we also wanted to explore the impacts that our food systems have on the global public goods that we all need to survive and thrive. So in the case of food systems, this is biodiversity, water, and soil. So we reviewed this year's World Trade Organization agreement on fisheries subsidies, and collectively we believe that it doesn't go far enough in protecting ecosystems, and therefore in our communique we called on G20 countries to take concrete actions to support marine and riverine biodiversity as well as sustainable fisheries. And these actions should include things like ending bottom trawling, increasing data collection to manage fish stocks, and controlling overcapacity of fleets, which leads to overexploitation. Secondly, about 70% of groundwater withdrawn worldwide is used for agriculture. With 11 of the G20 countries falling into the 15 nations with the largest estimated annual groundwater extraction, it's imperative that the G20 reduces groundwater extraction by strengthening regulation and improving monitoring. Additionally, we wanted this proposal to highlight the centrality of technological innovation, as well as innovation in delivery and access within food systems. So to also reduce groundwater extraction, we must work directly with farmers to raise awareness on and increase access to more efficient irrigation methods, technologies, and drought-resistant crops. Finally, we recognize the importance of soil as the foundation of agriculture and therefore our food systems. In this vein, we call for G20 countries to develop national soil health maps and commit to soil restoration and conservation, including by reducing the use of pesticides and also gradually replacing the use of synthetic fertilizers with organic fertilizers. So to summarize, by taking such a nature positive, climate smart, inclusive and systemic approach to food systems transformation, we can ensure that we deliver equitable food systems as part of the promise of a truly sustainable and livable planet. Thank you, and I will hand back to the chair.
Thank you, Michaela. Thank you, Tommy, and thank you, Natalia. They are just three representatives of our working group of G20 countries, European Union, and the observers. But of course, as I said at the beginning, we know it is not enough. We know like the youth is much more various, much more diverse, and it needs to be represented. And that's why our next step is to try to include more views from the ground, to try to make this proposal a bit more broader and acceptable.
With these words, we would like to go on with our speakers list, and now we will invite a very diverse group of representatives, young people working on the ground. They are young scientists, part of the young scientists group, and also a young entrepreneur, also delivering action on the ground. So our G20 colleagues, they have identified some of the areas that the G20 youth has tackled throughout the work this year. Some of these issues are also of a great concern for young scientists and young entrepreneurs nowadays. And the first area which we'd like to bring up right now would be healthy soils. It's not a secret that food sustainability does not start with a meal on our plate. It starts underneath our feet. And amidst a rapid soil degradation across the globe, we wonder what action do young people take in order to prevent the erosion of soils, and how young scientists do map out soils at risk in order to restore their health. I would like to invite Dr. Eddie Trihatmoko, who is agroecology and disaster risk expert and World Food Forum Young Scientists Group member. Eddie, you have the floor. We don't hear you, Eddie. Something went wrong with the microphone. We don't hear you. Or we do? No. We still can't hear you. Maybe you could reconnect to the platform. And in the meantime, I will give the floor to another speaker. Okay? Fine. Then let's move on to another speaker while Eddie's reconnecting. So the first part will be on healthy soils. Don't forget that. But again, once we have our food grown and ready, we need to store it. And post-harvest loss is a great issue, especially in the global south. And here we come to another big thought, that food sustainability does not apply exclusively to food products per se. It encompasses the way they are stored after being collected, harvested, and the energy we use to power the storage. So being at the forefront of combating post-harvest losses, how can a young entrepreneur transform inefficient supply chains into a reliable and clean solution? To answer this question, we would like to invite Matthias Charles Yabe, who is co-founder and CEO of AquaFresh. This is a startup in Ghana who provides clean solutions for post-harvest storage. So, Matthias, you have the floor.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. I hope you can hear me, yeah?
You're audible.
Great. So yes, of course, the issue of post-harvest losses is global. It's not just an issue that is present only in Ghana, and it's something that cuts across many farming communities in Africa and across the global south. Because currently, just in sub-Saharan Africa, smallholder farmers are losing up to 40% of all harvested food between harvest and consumption. This lets us know that the issue is something that is really huge, and it's something that as young innovators, we need to really tackle in order to ensure stronger and resilient food systems. So now more than ever, I believe that as youth, we need to leverage on science, innovation, and technology to try and mitigate some of these issues, to help build resilient communities and stronger food systems as well. So how are we doing this in Ghana? So we have started by, creating effective cold storage solutions for smallholder farmers to help reduce post-harvest losses. And one thing we realize is that one of the major causes of post-harvest losses is lack of storage. And during our community pilot, we also realized that farmers do not have access to market as well. So market linkage, in the sense that when farmers do not get buyers to come and take off their fresh produce on time, they end up losing most of their crops. So that is the issue number two. And the third issue had to do with lack of training and effective technologies that it helps them with handling of these crops. So we are trying to target these three areas. But then most importantly, we have started with cooling. So my team and I have developed a solar-powered cold storage preservation technology that extends shelf life of perishable crops from 5 days to 21 days. And this solution is helping farmers reduce losses by 50%. And this solution doesn't use any form of preservatives. What it only does is to use the principle of cooling to store fresh crops under environmentally controlled temperatures, to reduce ethylene and then extend the shelf life for up to 3 weeks. And this is quite interesting because we are not only just preventing food waste, but we are also ensuring that the farmers who are producing these crops are able to also have the opportunity to look for buyers who will be able to buy their crops at competitive prices. So that is how we are harnessing this technology to reduce post-harvest losses. And one major thing we also realized when we were deploying our solution was with regards to the fact that most of these local communities were not having access to reliable energy. So how do you then deploy cold chain in these areas when there's lack of energy? So that gave us informed decision that we can run this technology on 100% solar energy, harnessing the sun to give these farmers access to clean cooling, which is quite sustainable and affordable. Because if we want to connect to the grid, meaning there's going to be high cost of electricity bills, and these farmers wouldn't be able to pay for it. So that is how we are also harnessing the technology to help farmers store their crops whilst they wait for buyers, and helping them reduce post-harvest losses as well. Thank you so much, and I hope that this solution could be easily replicated in other countries as well. As we speak, our work has been recognized by World Economic Forum. We've also received recognition from FAO and other institutions as well. And what we are doing is to leverage on some of these results from our pilots and global partnerships to scale our work. So thank you so much, and it was a pleasure having me here.
Thanks a lot, Matthias. In fact, what you mentioned, and I would just like to briefly underscore that the work you're doing does not only solve the issue of saving harvest from being lost, but it also provides reliable energy access to local communities. This is something that solves multiple SDGs simultaneously and should be really supported. I would also like to mention that this year there was a Clean Cooking Summit in Ghana. So it seems that this part of Africa is ahead in terms of clean cooking innovation, which is great. And we hope that more areas, not only in the continent, but throughout the world, will join the movement. And then we'd like to touch upon another area of interest, which is post-consumption issues related to used packaging, because practically everything we buy is packed in something, and also food waste. Food sustainability does not end once we finish our meal. It extends to both used packaging and food waste. And given the detrimental impact of post-consumption mismanagement, how can science and youth entrepreneurship help make our food systems circular? With this question, I would like to invite Dr. Clarity Ropafadzo Mapengo. She is food scientist and co-founder of Fruity X Fusion, and also a World Food Forum Young Scientist. So, Clarity, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we do.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm so happy to hear feedback from the other speakers in various areas that they are working in, because it shows how interconnected our food system is and how we all have to play a role to really make a difference and champion a resilient food system. So my area, what we focused on when we started Fruity X Fusion, our startup, which is converting fruit and vegetable waste into biodegradable packaging material, was one, we noticed that in South Africa, there was over 60% of food waste was coming from fruits and vegetables. Most of it because obviously fruits and vegetables are perishable, but also because farmers are not equipped enough to be able to process if they have like an overabundance of their fresh produce. And as a result, this ends up going into waste and then dump sites and then contribute to carbon emissions and a lot of that. On the other hand, we also look at how we are a generation that is more into convenient foods, and we have checkouts, and most of that it's unsustainable packaging, whether it's plastic straws, plastic utensils, and all that. So we thought, okay, as a food scientist, how can we tackle the issue of food waste as well as the issue of like plastic pollution? So we found a solution, which was converting fruit and vegetable waste into packaging material. And one of the reasons why we felt so driven to use this particular sort of solution was also how it was promoting or increasing the return on investment for local farmers. So in the end, we also had farmers getting something out of the inevitable waste that comes from the agricultural value chain. So I think it's very important for us to really understand that while we are playing a part in developing a food product or in consuming, even if your consumption patterns are very admirable, but if you're using the utensil that will end up in polluting the ocean, then what you think is doing good, really the other aspect of your lifestyle is actually being detrimental. So that's our food system. And having that sort of mindset of saying, how can we curb waste? How can we minimize pollution? How can we preserve or make our planet more healthy? Is really the mindset that as young people we sort of drove and championed in establishing Fruit Extrusion. And one thing that I want to highlight, which really makes me very proud, is that while this is a patented innovation and we're trying to make it to upscale it, I was a mentor for this other Unleash competition where I worked with a company based in Indonesia, which is called Growing Plastic. So what they're doing is converting banana peels into bubble wrap, which is used to, instead of the plastic wrap that you have to protect your packaging when you're getting deliveries of various goods outside of just food production, they use that bubble wrap. And what was amazing was the fact that we might not look at this as something that's linearly related to food, but think of the raw materials that you are transporting. Think of how the transportation system, how plastics are involved in that whole process. And imagine if we use waste, agricultural waste, into creating a new product that replaces that plastic. Not only are we adding value to everyone who is involved within that value chain, but we are also reducing pollution and protecting our environment. So that's the vision for me, is to see as many companies like that growing all over the world. While we might have issues with patenting and innovations, it's amazing to see how young people are working together in various regions and working on similar ideas from different angles and making a difference. And if we can all have that mindset, if you can all look at our actions and the ripple effect thereof across the value chain, then we're going to make a difference. So I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy to talk about how we get to curb food waste and how we get to promote a more sustainable environment and champion a resilient food system. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I hope to see more young people really continuing to do amazing work as the other speakers. Back to you, Chairperson.
Great clarity. Thanks a lot. In fact, this is one of the on the ground examples of how we can rethink the approach towards agricultural waste. We used to think that it's linear, but it's not, and it is possible to include this innovation into supply chains in the global south as well. And I would say primarily in the global south, it is much needed, since as of now, unfortunately, a lot of global south countries, big economies as well, are still importing plastics for future like plastic manipulation, but this manipulation does not lead to recycling. Most often it leads to plastic just storage somewhere outside of cities. So this could be part of the global solution to plastic pollution. And going back to Eddie, we would like to hear something on healthy soils and what is done in the area of young scientists and that. Eddie?
Well, is it audible, Vadim?
Yes, great.
Great. Okay, thank you. It's my honor to be here in this forum, and I really appreciate what all the Y20 groups working in this occasion, and I will welcome everyone to come to Indonesia for the G20 summit on November, and talk about the healthy soil. As what Vadim said before, that the food sustainability does not come from the food that served in the table, but it comes from the underneath of our feet with the healthy soils. And talk about the healthy soil, we need to start with the fact that we only have 30% of the earth's surface, which is land, because the rest just covered with the ocean or sea. And from that 30%, we only have 10% of the arable land. And that from that 10%, we only have a few mounds of the land that not part of the disaster prone area. So now we are facing how to deal with the arable land that located in the disaster prone area. That's all what we have done in our research center. And with that small amount of the arable land, we need to feed more than 8 billion inhabitants in the world. So that it's quite something for us to deal with it. And we can take an example. We can take an example for these issues, because for the example, we are working in Indonesia for sure with the very thin soil, and then there are quite massive topography. We work with that, and then if we go to the land resources evaluation, then we just stop in that limitation, because it said that we cannot do anything in the very thin soil with a steepy slope. But then we as a young scientist, or we as a young researcher, need to uh, think out of the box. So then we need to think people that live in this kind of area with a very thin soil and then with a very steep slope condition, then we do the soil rejuvenation. And I think there are a lot of things or a lot of ways to deal with this kind of situation. And our example is conducted the soil rejuvenation. And this kind of example also can be done with the other scientists, young scientists. And also we can tell for the youth in Indonesia or also around the globe that we all have a big courage, we all have a big spirits and power to do anything we want, And start from that point, we also have to understand that our society, our community in the ground cannot face a huge transformation. They really need a they really need our existence to bring them slowly but sure, because they have no power, they have no thought that they can follow our situation. So the point is, how can we bring them in a good change, but they also can follow all the things that they want to involve for them. So that the point is, we should not think all the things in the society or in the inhabitant, but then how we can understand the local knowledge, how we can understand the local condition, and then we can empower it, we can elevate the good things from the local knowledge without changing it. That's all we do in the society, precisely in Indonesia. And then Fadim also said that we also tackle with the erosional processes. Uh,
I'm
from
very
this
sorry. I'm
point,
very sorry. Could you wrap up because of the timing? We just need to stick to the schedule.
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So from that cases that talk about the erosional processes, now we are working with the real erosional processes, because that's all the soil healthy comes from. Maybe that's for me. Thank you, Fadim. I give the floor back to you.
Great, Eddie. Thanks a lot for making this finally with the microphone and keeping it concise. Although this is not a topic of 5 minutes, of a 5-minute intervention. This is a huge international conference of a whole week. So, but we aim high, and that's why I'm going to pass the floor back to Francesco to try aiming even higher and go on with another set of opinions and visions.
Yes, thank you, Vadim. So basically, I told you at the beginning, the purpose of our event was really to create an opportunity to discuss what the main outcomes of the Y20 were, to try to integrate them with the key findings of young scientists, young entrepreneurs, activists, and see how these together could contribute to creating a solid consensus of for a shared vision on the future of food systems for all youth. And that's why I'm passing the word now to Nicholas, Jessica, and then to Opeyemi, who are basically three representatives of the World Food Forum Youth Action focal points. And they will try to tell us how we are planning how they're planning to gather all these contributions and inputs and create a shared vision towards COP27. Nicholas, I'm starting with you. And I know that in 2 days you will join the Youth Assembly Working Group on COP27, trying to come up with a youth statement on food systems, basically. So judging by the multiple consultations that you have held as focal points throughout the year, which are the priorities that the young people are bringing, are putting forward, and how do these priorities differ across the globe?
Well, thank you, Francesco, and thank you for having me. As you may know, during these days, different regional roundtables are taking place, each one after a consultation process through surveys and regional consultation dialogues, in which 5 policy priorities per region were identified by the youth. We still have days of work to see the final version of these priorities and see their similarities and differences. Saying that, I will refer to the priorities of Latin America and the Caribbean, on which I have worked together with my colleague Juan David Caro from Colombia, and also with the support of regional allies and also of the FAO Regional Office for Latin America and the Caribbean. So our regional priorities are first, invest in agri-food system by applying innovative approach through the agroecology framework. Secondly, supporting small farmers, indigenous people, and youth farmers. Third, guarantee inclusive, healthy, and sustainable feeding programs in schools and provide environmental education. 4, promote the importance of indigenous and local food knowledge. And finally, promote human right to food, demanding that the agri-food system are organized based on food sovereignty. I wanted to refer, rather than the difference, to the concepts that are present in the different regional priorities, because I have the opportunity to see the draft version of the other regions. In many of them repeat the consideration of indigenous people and the value of their knowledge. That is why I think it's very important that during this week at the FAO headquarters, the indigenous people are present and recognized as actors that must be included. And secondly, the education has the tool we can use to progress from the utilitarian view of natural resource to a deeper and more complex view on our relation with the nature. I will also trying to address the importance of different opinions and inclusion of women, youth, and also, as I said, the indigenous people. So I hope to have the opportunity to continue exchange our opinions and also personal experience during the rest of the week. Thank you.
Thank you a lot, Nicholas. And so going to you, Jessica. Nicholas, he said there are 5 policy priorities per region. He brought the example of Latin America and the Caribbean. And he said that it's important to take into account the different opinions also within this grouping. So my question to you is very direct. How do you take into account the contextual factors and the individual experiences when creating this shared vision?
And the question now we have to address is it possible to come up with a shared vision? And the answer is yes, because we're faced by shared challenges. And we are faced by shared challenges of climate change, impacts caused by the pandemic and natural hazards, hunger, malnutrition, among many others. This is why we have the Sustainable Development Goals, 17 of them, that we need to achieve. And to be frank, we are behind on achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, but we are not giving up because we have hope and we are hopeful, but we are taking actions. So we take dialogues, but we also incorporate actions, meaningful actions. And how can we do that? One, on the topic of sustainable development, sustainable agri-food systems involves production, food storage, harvest, transportation, processing, distribution, consumption. And to advance and strengthening the agri-food systems, we have to focus on youth actions with youth leadership. And this is why for the World Food Forum, the Youth Action Track, we amplify youth actions with youth leadership, and we include diversity, inclusion, and equity to be the core of the work that we do at the Youth Action Track. Inclusion, so everyone is well represented, like Nicholas has just mentioned. Marginalized, indigenous, underrepresented, underserved communities, their opinions and also their perspectives are well incorporated. We have to preserve local and traditional values and heritage. We also have to include a sense of audiovisual mechanisms to preserve and to express arts, cultures, and heritage, and how those are valuable to the expressions and also to the actions that we take on transforming the agri-food systems. And we also have to include the sense of appreciation for the different customs, food, linguistics, ways of expressions. And that's why at the World Food Forum, we have different tracks. We have education, a youth action track, and also cultures. We also have young scientists group. And then in terms of diversity, we have to respect the diverse perspectives that our participants and the delegates bring forth to the table. And we also have to respect the technical backgrounds that they have, as well as the demographics that we have in the team. And as for equality, we strive to have equal treatment for all of our delegates, while also maintaining a sense of equitable access. So equal treatment, treating everybody the same, but offering them equitable access, meaning what do they need individually to succeed based on their needs and also their individual circumstances. So these are the values and principles that we bring forth in how we are able to achieve the common vision towards tackling common shared challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. And finally, so we heard from Nicholas what you did, what you're doing. From Jessica, how you're doing, taking into account diversity, inclusion, and equity. Opeyemi, to conclude, the final image that we want everybody to take home. So, what for? So what's the shared vision that you're aiming to achieve?
Yeah, thank you so much, Francesco. Thank you for having us. So since we started the conversation, I've heard some words used repeatedly. Talk about affordability, accessibility, waste management, climate change, clean energy, youth engagement, protect biodiversity, soil earth conservation, among other amazing words that have been used. And of course, this has been said in different languages and by people from different regions. And of course, this suggests that the drive is actually towards achieving health and well-being, but then not just for us as humans, but also for the other life forms that we share the planet with. And so I would say in my own view, the ultimate shared vision when it comes to youth, food and food system would be increased accessibility and affordability to awesome food that is produced in a way that is just and respectful of the health, values, and the aesthetics of the planet and the other life forms that we share the planet with. And of course, that's a food system that is co-created by relevant stakeholders in the agri-food system space, inclusive of young people, smallholders farmers, indigenous peoples who have likely been a beacon of hope when it comes to protecting nature and also providing food in a way that conserves the values and aesthetics of environment. And also, of course, among other stakeholders that need to be engaged in the food system transformation space. And of course, these people have largely been marginalized in the policies and decision-making space. So gearing towards production of food that, that in a way that repositions agriculture to the front line of climate and ecological crisis will be the shared vision that young people would love to see. Thank you.
Thanks a lot to the youth focal points and all the speakers. I'm going to sum up the discussion and say a few words. First, unfortunately, some technical stuff. We don't have time to take questions, so if you had some, approach us afterwards. Generally, as we've seen and as we've heard now, there are different pathways accessible to youth to contribute. Right? If you are interested more in policy, and even if you're not from a G20 country, you can join through the established mechanisms that exist here by the FAO. If you're from a G20 country, you can try and join the future cohort of youth delegates. If you are more into science, there are different ways for you to contribute meaningfully. And a platform here at FAO is just one of many. The world of food systems is much larger. And once we talk about food, and this is a message we'd really like to convene all of us, all the speakers and moderators and everyone who we have been collaborating with throughout those months, is that food systems are much wider than just food and products, starting from soil, ending up with post-consumption management of waste. If you are interested in any of those, you are already transforming food systems. And COP27 is not the ending point, it's just the beginning, because we think that by shaping this sort of collaboration, when the youth action focal points work on something with their regional and local communities, when us as G20 youth delegates work on something together, and when young scientists do their part of job, altogether we can strive for something that we find relevant, not only just to our communities or our groupings of countries, but for the whole world. Because food is something that unites people. We cannot live without food. We need it, but we need it to be healthy and sustainable, just to ensure that others will also have it in the future. So please be active, even proactive, reach out to networks and other young people, because together, if we have this ambition to influence food systems, to make them work the way we want, we can do that. Thank you once again for coming, for all those who are watching us online, and of course to all the speakers and my co-moderator, Francesco. Thank you. And we need to leave the room because apparently there is one more event coming right now. So, if you want.
Bye, everyone.